Hey guys, it's Chris. So I'm going to give you 4 tips on how to control hunger when you're dieting. Because if you've dieted to any great degree, you'll know at some point you actually start to get hungry. As we enter into that calorie deficit, it's completely normal for your body to start making changes and for you to start feeling hungrier throughout that diet, especially when you get towards the back end of the diet and calories get lower. So tip number 1, make sure that you're hitting that protein target each and every day. So for most people, one gram per pound is going to be a good sort of figure to aim towards in terms of your protein intake in grams per day. Spread that across your meals so that ultimately we get that hit of protein. What this will help us do, the first thing is obviously we're going to preserve muscle tissue when we're dieting. That's absolutely essential if we want to look better, we want to feel better and still keep a good performance in the gym. But it's also going to help us control hunger hormones. It's going to also control blood sugar, and it's going to slow down the digestive transit time of all foods. So just because protein is present, it's the hardest food to break down. Everything else gets slowed down. So in terms of that food making its way to the bloodstream, we now have a drip feed effect rather than a massive rush of nutrients. The second tip, and this is one that I really like to use when dieting for things like a photo shoot, and obviously it can come in really, really handy when you're dieting yourself too. So use things like 10 calorie jellies, like low calorie treats, so under 100 calorie treats like Fiber One bars, things like that. And also use diet drinks. So they're not going to provide a massive rush of calories, and obviously the zero calorie stuff is going to provide nothing, but you can trick yourself into thinking you've had something sweet when you're craving something sweet. So rather than taking yourself to Starbucks and demolishing a brownie and being completely out of your deficit, you've now tricked your brain into thinking that you've had something that you haven't, and you're going to find it easier to stay on track. The third thing is, don't remove carbohydrates completely from your diet, even if you're reducing them downwards throughout the diet phase itself. Because just like we were talking about with protein having a satiating effect, we're also going to have a satiating effect from carbohydrates. So ultimately, when we eat those carbs, we're going to use those carbs, especially if we're training, we're obviously going to use them for our performance in the gym, but we're also going to get a hormonal response to those carbohydrates, which again means at that point in time when we're digesting that food, we have no real need to pump out those hunger hormones. So you haven't got to go zero carb just to lose weight and body fat. The fourth tip, and this is for when calories really start to get low. So let's say you're dropping down, depending on your height, your weight, you could be going down to low, like 1,200 calories, something like that. If you're a small female, or if you're a sort of large male, you might be going down to like 2,000 calories, 2,500. Obviously, all of these calorie intakes are going to be dependent on you, your TDE, where you need to be, and so on and so forth. But one thing that I also like to use when my own calories are getting much lower during a diet phase, I like to actually implement intermittent fasting so that now I have a window of time for food rather than trying to spread low calories throughout a bigger day, a bigger time frame. So your typical breakfast, lunch and dinner, depending on what times you're working, can become actually really difficult to make sure that you're not suffering with hunger in between because there might be large gaps. So instead what I would do is I would actually operate on an 8-hour feeding window. So I usually start that around about 12 p.m, finish around about 8 p.m, and it helps me manage low calories when I'm dieting. So then I feel like I've had bigger meals, I feel like I've had more food than I've had, and I find that for some clients this works really well too. So this can be an amazing strategy for you to use at the back end of a diet when calories get lower. At the front end of the diet, when calories are higher, obviously you don't need to worry too much about intermittent fasting, but it's a great way of controlling that hunger as you progress with your dieting phase. So these 4 tips, I hope they really help you out. Hunger can be a massive reason why you start to struggle on diets, why you start to cheat on diets, and I find that using some of these simple strategies really helps keep myself and also my clients on track for their transformations.